Hello and welcome to episode 57 of the Two Russells podcast. When I say two Russells, there's only one of us. Russell Jervis, as we film this, guess where he is? In the United States watching the World Cup. And why wouldn't he? We might even bring it home at long last. First time since before I was born, in fact. So you're going to have to put up with me, just Russell Quirk, instead of the two Russells for this episode 57. And it's a special one. And actually talking about the US and overseas, I'm delighted to introduce my guest from the US, Felix Bravo from eXp International. In fact, Managing Director of eXp International. Felix, welcome to the Two Russells.
Thank you so much for having me. I think I might want to be with the other Russell, no offense, right now, watching the World Cup.
I'm
very happy to be here.
You're a
huge fan.
And who knew that the US does soccer, as you call it?
It does soccer, yeah. I translate, I say football. But
we're
not too bad at it.
Well, we'll see. I think you've had a game. You've won a game already.
We've won a game, 4-1 against Paraguay. I think we're a bit of a dark horse. Yeah.
Okay, so maybe a UK, an England-US final, because obviously as we film this, the England team beat Croatia 4-2 last night.
Yeah. What a game.
I don't particularly care about football, if I'm honest. I care much more about real estate, if I'm honest. That's what you're here to talk about. So look, first of all, can we talk about the business of eXp? So most people watching this within the industry in the UK will know what eXp is, but maybe embellish on that a little bit in terms of what eXp is, because it's a real estate brokerage, it's a technology firm, which I know is a real kind of passion of yours. Just give us an overview of eXp.
Yeah, I think, in a broader range, eXp is a real estate brokerage that created a model which changed the way real estate works forever. We've created a model where we flipped it upside down, and the money that gets paid in by the agents via commissions, et cetera, instead of going up to some CEO, some corporate, some royalty or something like that, we created a model where in the US, 50 cents on every dollar that we earn goes into a revenue share pool that we give back to the agents who have helped us grow the brand. And that has created a solution to the long-term problem of how do you exit in the real estate space? 99% of agents don't ever get an exit. They don't get a retirement. For as much as we talk about helping our investors and our clients invest in real estate to create long-term wealth, we found that sometimes agents aren't the best at doing that themselves as well. And the revenue share model and earning shares in a publicly traded company has really changed that. So we put the focus on one person and one person only, and that's the estate agent. That's what we care about.
And a very supportive platform. So it's not just, hey, be an agent under our banner. So in the UK, where you'd fund, for instance, the cost of portals, you'd help with technology by way of a CRM, compliance, and so on. You're genuinely supportive, you would say, of the agent themselves.
100%. Our big push is we want your brand first. We're not here for you to represent the eXp banner and put it everywhere. It's brokered by eXp, powered by eXp, but we have a huge emphasis on putting the agent's brand first. I think Glenn Sanford, our founder, who I believe you've had on this podcast at some point, he was a firm believer always in personal branding. And I think he was so ahead of the curve on that. In 2009, nobody was talking about personal brand and nobody saw what social media was going to become. But he always thought that the real estate agent is the business owner. They're all the CEOs of their own business. And what we want to do is create a back-end platform for them, whether they're going to sell 5 to 10 homes a year because that's the lifestyle they want, or they want to create the next team that takes over the UK and multiple countries around the world. We have a platform that allows them to scale as they grow their business, both scaling forward and scaling backwards, which I think is something not many people talk about.
And what we would call here the self-employed model, and we define it as that because, of course, the majority of agents in the UK are employed. So what you would call employed either by an independent estate agency or a corporate. Predominantly originally a US kind of model, but eXp took that international exactly when and where has that got to now in terms of scale?
Yeah, so in 2020, we started right here in the UK. It was the first country outside of North America. So for us, international is anything that isn't US and Canada. UK and Australia were the first countries that we sort of tested the model in. And when we came to the UK, you have these sort of two options. Everybody tells you, well, the way it works here is it's an employed model, and you've seen other self-employed companies come before you, big names that are international names, and it hasn't necessarily worked out for them. But I think the largest difference between us and them is when we came in is we weren't trying to necessarily just change the business model. We were trying to offer a new opportunity for agents in a way where they could own their own brand, build their own business, and that's what was unique about it. And so now we're sitting at 6,000 agents outside of North America, a little over 6,000 agents. We've been growing for the last 5 years, 1,000 of which are here in the UK. We just crossed the 1,000 mark. I was in Birmingham yesterday for our conference where we celebrated that with our agents, which is fantastic. I think actually you brought up a point where We're currently about we're 2% of all real estate sales in the UK at the moment are coming from our agents, and we're about 50% of all self-employed agents in the entire UK. So we've really kicked off and not just necessarily shown that the model works. And it's not about eXp proving that a model worked, which was self-employment. It was the fact that we partnered with agents who we said, hey, you've been doing this for a long time. You've been doing it at an employed level. You have all the skill sets to do this for yourself. The reason you haven't is because it's really hard to start a business. It's scary. There's all these different costs and overhead that you have to take on. What if we gave you a platform where the only cost was a monthly fee, and here's the split, and you can cap and get to 100%, and we can set you up for success day one. All you have to do is not necessarily take especially now, we're not asking anybody to take a chance on our model anymore. Our model works. It's proven. Right? I'm asking you to take a chance on yourself. If you can bet on yourself that, hey, if you give it 6 months, give it a year. You've been employed for the last 2 years. Give it a year. What happens if you do this for yourself? What happens if the 30 homes you sold last year you were doing for yourself under your banner with a platform that's helping you with the admin, operations, technology, all that sort of things? And what we've seen is we've had some incredible agents. I mean, yesterday I was with so many of our fantastic agents, Adam McKay and Alex Buchanan and Georgina Hamley. So many agents who went from, and they're all telling the same story. I used to make $30K a year as an estate agent, or maybe Mark Buchanan, who was like, no, I worked 10 years. I worked my ass off and I made it to $100K a year as a branch manager. Yeah. And then they come to EXP.
Taking 5 to 10% of the commission.
Exactly. And then they come to EXP and what they're able to do for their families, for their income. And so many of it, before eXp, I was at a lot of other brokerages, mostly tech-backed brokerages, and I never heard anybody say, my brokerage changed my life. And I remember the first day I came to eXp, an agent came to me, a very prominent agent, said, my brokerage, the decision to join eXp changed my life. And I sort of went, okay, like that's
but
funny.
Even you thought that was an exaggeration?
Even I thought that was an exaggeration because I was like, how can
Really?
your broker change your life, right? What do you mean? And that is probably the most commonly used phrase that I hear from eXp agents.
And when they say change their life, I guess not just in financial terms. So they go from earning 30 or 40K for a corporate. Yeah. You have eXp agents in the UK, I know, that are earning £200,000,
Yep.
which would seem to people watching this that are in a corporate world fantastical, as in, I don't believe you, but it's true, right? But it's not just the money, is it? It's also the empowerment, it's the flexibility. I talk to agents, whether they're eXp or others in the self-employed space, and it really is about the fact that they can live their own lives how they want, rather than being dictated to by a regional manager, by way of KPIs every Monday morning before 9:30 and so on. But I guess you have to be a certain type of person, don't you?
I think you have to have the entrepreneur bug in you to a degree. And
so it's not for everybody.
I don't think it's for everybody. No, I think that I think everybody can do it 100%. I think everybody has all of the systems and tools, and we've laid out a platform that kind of gives you the roadmap and gives you everything you need, where we say, here's everything you need to be successful. Here's exactly how you can be successful. Here's all the training. But I think there are people, and what I've, in my time here in the UK, I've gotten to spend some time with employed agents, kind of interviewing them and talking to them. And they're the ones who see working in the estate agency or working in real estate as just a job, right? They don't see it as something more than a job. Whereas I think what our agents have seen is the opportunity with eXp isn't just, like you said, financial to make more money. It's to own their own business, build their own brand, leave something behind, create something that's bigger than them, offer opportunities for their family, for different types of collaboration. And they see a vision, which is the life they want. And they're using eXp's platform. They're using them building their own brand as kind of like a rocket ship to get there, right? And so I think every single estate agent in the country has what it takes. They've proven it. If you're employed, the only difference is now you're not going to have a boss telling you what to do. So if you come to eXp, what happens if no one's forcing you to do the work? Because we're not going to force it to you.
Yeah, so
right?
You have to have an element of self-discipline. You have to be a self-starter. You have to kind of want to go for it in terms of that work ethic. And look, I'm far be it from me to suggest that there's estate agents in the UK that don't have a work ethic, but it has to be a certain type of person that has a risk appetite, I guess, because there is a risk. You're not going to earn any money for the first few months, right? Because of the way that the conveyancing process, the legal process works in the UK. And I guess, look, let's be honest, there's a churn, right? There's people that presumably sign up to be agents, whether it's with eXp or TA UK or Keller Williams or whatever. Obviously, there's other brands are available in the UK. And there will be a churn. So what do eXp do to guide an agent that signs up to make sure that they get the best out of not just the platform and the technology, but so that they get kind of looked after, mentored. If they wake up one morning, 4 weeks in, haven't listed a house, haven't sold anything, and it's all starting in their minds to go horribly wrong, what sort of support is there, either from eXp or I guess from the eXp network of agents, to kind of help them get back on track?
Well, I think that's where the network is such an important piece of our business. You have people who are aligned to and incentivized to help you. That is part of the model through revenue share. And that's where I think it's so important to pick the right person to partner with. And that person is there to guide you. They're kind of like your flashlight within the model to a degree, and they're there to help you and support you. And we have so many fantastic trainers and coaches. What our model does is it attracts some of the best coaches and trainers in the country, because now they're incentivized to help agents grow their business without having to charge them up front for any of it. On the flip side of that, or on the staff side of it, I mean, we have a fantastic team, I think of over 30 staff in the UK. We have all sorts of trainings on, how to get more instructions, lettings, sales, everything you could think of. But we also give you the full platform in terms of, we have a fantastic partnership with our CRM Loop, lead generation, building your own brand. We give you your own website. We'll give you the logos. We'll give you all the marketing assets that you need. We'll give you the Canva Pro account. We give you all the systems and tools for you to go out there and grow your business. We handle all of the portals, syndication, so we take on all the portal costs, et cetera. And so it really just becomes if you can come into eXp and do the work that the 1,000 agents have done before you, you will get results. It's far more about, are you doing it for a reason, for a purpose, and intentionally? Do you understand the vision of self-employment and why it's important that you can build your business? It's so funny. Everyone has the same story. It's like the first 6 months are so hard. And it's the reality. First 6 months
in the UK,
starting,
which I want to kind of probe in a second, particularly in the UK, because that lead time between listing, sale, and completion or closing, whatever you want to call it, is so long. So look, we've done kind of, what have we done? We've done 12 minutes of eXp advert, some might say now. This has been a nice kind of positive, polished thing for eXp to kind of set their stall out on this podcast. So let's kind of switch gears a little bit. Let me be devil's advocate, if I may, just for a second. The UK is not the same as the US or even France or Spain. How, therefore, can the self-employed model not just work here? Because I think, as you've demonstrated, it does work. And again, whether it's eXp or whoever else, but how does it scale? Because I've spoken to other platforms in the past that have kind of come here from the US or France or wherever, where there does seem to be a fundamental misunderstanding of those platforms, that the UK is different. And the reason it's different, in fact, there's a number of reasons that it's different, is because our conveyancing process is different, our laws and regulations are different, but also our culture as real estate agents is different, in that we don't have a predominant self-employed model as the kind of standard operating system, whereby your job, I guess, as eXp is, in the US, it's to convert someone from Compass to eXp or from Keller Williams to eXp. Here, it's a much bigger obstacle, because it's not just converting someone from A to B. It's actually getting over that obstacle, which is employed, company car, base salary, all very nice and comfortable, 9 to 5. Yes, okay, 30 or 40K a year. But then to say, okay, you're not just changing from the green brand to the blue brand, you're changing a whole operating system, a whole mindset of operating as an individual. That's an enormous hurdle to get over in the UK.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is. And I think the short answer is, if you had asked me this question 5 years ago, I'd have a much longer answer. My answer this time around is, we're the largest estate agency brand in the country, in the UK. We've got over 1,000 agents who are absolutely doing some incredible things. And I think I saw a stat yesterday at the UK conference that we've now grown to 2% of all sales, but our market share has increased over the last year in the self-employment space as eXp, and the top 9 brands who are in the employed space, their market share has actually gone down quite a bit. So we've been growing while they haven't been growing, and I don't think that's necessarily a byproduct of the consumer who's buying houses. At the end of the day, the person who's buying a house, they don't care if you're employed, not employed, whatever your business is.
They just want the outcome.
They want the outcome. They want you to help them with their house and with their home. And what we found is that the quality of service that the consumer gets a lot of the times with our agents can be quite different, because they're not just another number. They're not just a KPI. Yeah. There's this strong attachment to your clients, right? And you've built your own brand and your own system. And so For us, there is a huge hurdle, but I hear this everywhere I go, Russell, if I'm being honest. And it was intimidating at first. I'm originally from South America, and I always say, like, oh, Latinos, we're so different, right? We're so unique. And I get the pleasure of traveling to all of our 29 countries that we're in and meeting all of our agents, and everybody says the same thing. Oh, but in our country, it's so different, and we're so unique. And the reality is, regardless of where you are in the world, you're a real estate agent. Your job is to help someone with the largest financial decision they'll ever make in their entire life. That's not going to change. What will change is some rules, some regulations, some laws, some contracts that do you use a lawyer versus transaction specialist, whatever. Those things change, yes. But the function of your job, what you have to do, how you have to help someone through that process, educate them, help them, and become more than just a real estate agent, but a business partner for them, of helping them grow their wealth, their income, et cetera, through real estate, or even just helping them get to the next stage of their life because they had a kid, they had a divorce, a family death, whatever happened. That function is still the same. We all deal with the same things. We all deal with a deal falling through. We all deal with the parents of a buyer coming in and saying, oh, knocking on the wood and going, I don't think the structure's safe in this house, and the deal falls apart. All those nuances are the same. And so I think we just treat humans like humans, and we've been a human first, house second, human first business for a long time. My obsession is with how, as a former agent, how can I every single day create a model that continues to empower our agents to grow their business? And that's what I focus on. We have all the compliance side and we have the legal teams and all those things, and extremely important. But I think that the short answer is, there's a group of people who are proving that the model works, and have already proven that the model works. And if you're an employed agent out there, I think the decision for you is, and there's no wrong answer, the decision is just where do you want to be in 5 years? What kind of life do you want to have?
Well, very, very good point. So that takes me to the question that I'm really asking, which is, how big does the self-employed sector within UK estate agency get? Yeah. So there's about 50,000 estate agents in the UK, 2,000 self-employed, as you've touched on. Half of those are eXp. Put that to one side for a second. In just about every other country in the world, self-employed as a status, that model, that kind of concept is dominant. We're, you could say, lagging behind in that respect. So how big do you think the self-employed space in the UK, from nothing to 1,000 to now 2,000, can get as a percentage of the total pool of estate agents in this country?
I think there will be more self-employed agents than employed agents in the next 5 to 6 years. I think that's the way the world has moved anyways. If you look at what social media did to the world, some of the largest brands in the world are no longer directly marketing to consumers. They're doing it through sort of creators who have built personal brands. I think humans are attaching themselves far more to people and brands that are built behind people than they are to just large conglomerates, so to speak. And so nowadays, half the people listening back home, like, you go on Instagram and 20% of your time on Instagram, you're being sold something by somebody you actually quite like. And so you might end up buying this, whatever it is, fitness product or something. You're not buying it because the brand behind the fitness product is so incredible. You're buying it because someone you like is using it, someone who conveys a lifestyle that you want, that you trust. And I think that mindset switch has happened all around the world. And I think that's what you see with self-employment, is that our agents are going out there and building their own brands, and they're creating an opportunity for their consumers to work with people they directly like and brands that they feel attached to. It's not just a green brand or a blue brand. It's a custom, personalized, curated brand by an agent who is now growing in their market. And I think that consumers will push more for that. And as that continues to happen, I think our agents will continue to grow their market share.
And I wonder if, though, in the UK, maybe we'll do it in baby steps. Maybe, as we're starting to see, some of the big corporate organisations, so famously Spicer Hart, which is a big independent estate agency here with about 300 offices or so, may, as a corporate, offer the regular employed route, but also start, as is happening already, to introduce a self-employed version. Do you think that's just a means to an end in terms of inevitability? Or do you think actually what might happen in the UK is that kind of hybrid is the thing that kind of really gets traction?
I think it'll be interesting to see what happens when, we've already seen some of the long-established employed brands who have been doing this for 100+ years, which, as an American, who our country's 300+ years old, is crazy to think about. But you're already seeing them start to adopt our versions of our model, right? And so we've seen that, by the way, across the world. Like in the US, this revenue share, cloud-based tech brokerage didn't exist. Now, in the last 6 years, there's no such thing as, if you were to start a brand from scratch or a new brokerage, any national brokerage is a version of our model. And so I think that what you'll see is them starting to build a hybrid. But as self-employment eventually continues to grow and scale, I think far less people will be looking for an employed model, and far more will be looking for self-employment. I also think just the younger generation is so entrepreneurial, and
they're conditioned to the gig economy already, right?
Yeah.
So
this thing right here has changed the way the world works. Like, you see people online who are 20, 21 years old just making a living off their computer or off their phone or off social media.
And you think that you can be an estate agent in this country, in the UK, just using your phone?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think you can run any business in the world at this point just using your phone. It's that close. I mean, you're one video away from your next client, right? You're one video away on social media from the next person who lives on the complete opposite side of the world saying, hey, you know what? I was actually looking at houses in Manchester because I'm a big Manchester United fan and I want to be near Old Trafford. Saw you posted a video talking about this property on 123 Main Street. I'm interested, right? How different is that from 10 or 15 years ago?
Going back to football, you live far enough away from Manchester to be a bona fide Manchester United fan. Because you know the old thing that people that live in Manchester are Manchester United fans, but people that live 5,000 miles away are definitely Manchester United fans.
I wake up at 6 a.m. to watch games on a Saturday. So
we went to the football.
And we went to football.
Manchester United Crystal Palace. We went.
And we got to win, which was great. I was stressed out half the time. But I've heard a couple of jokes before. We're like, oh, you're not a real Manchester United fan. You're just an American who supports the brand. I'm like, listen, tell that to my girlfriend when it's 6 a.m. and I'm screaming at the top of my lungs in the house on a Saturday morning, and she's pissed off. So it's it is.
Well, look, you've touched on you there. Can we? I want to talk about you a bit, if I may, because that's the theme of this podcast, which is about the individual as much as their job, their industry, or whatever. So I want to probe two parts of your life, if I may. The first is kind of the most recent history, which is how you get to be in the powerful position you are as head of international for a NASDAQ-listed real estate agency brokerage. So let's talk about that first. But then I do want to take you back to kind of, Felix as Felix learns to walk in Venezuela, as I understand. So let's talk about how you get to be sitting in this chair here as Managing Director of International for eXp.
Yeah, so I started my career quite young. I always make the joke that I started selling real estate as a kid just because my mom was a real estate agent in Miami when we moved over to the United States. I started a couple real estate teams myself. I come from what you guys call new homes, the new development space. So I work directly for developers in Miami, selling a lot of properties, mostly to international buyers, because that, especially at the time, but even so now, that's who's purchasing in South Florida. And so that's where I kind of built my craft, was selling high-end luxury property, new development homes. And then decided that I didn't want to work specifically for developers. I still wanted to sell new development homes, but I wanted to build my own team and my own brand. And I kind of went through the process of building my first team or brokerage and failed miserably at it the first time around.
At what age?
I was probably 23 years old, and I decided that I was good enough to go and scale a business. And I think it's a natural progression of real estate agents where we sell property. We reach a certain point and we go, what's next? Oh, I know. I now have to go hire a bunch of other agents, or I have to go convince other agents to join me, and that's how I'm going to scale. And so I wasn't so successful the first time around, and I learned some really tough lessons on what it's like to operate and manage a business.
Did you fail? Would you go that far?
What's the quote? All failure is only psychological until the day you die. So no, I didn't fail.
Yeah, fail forwards.
There you go. Fail forward. I learned a lot from it. I made some great connections during that time, and I had some incredible agents who I still work with all the time during that space. The agents I had succeeded, which is what I cared about more than anything. The agents I brought onto our brand did really, really well. I, as a business owner, wasn't necessarily as successful. Sometimes it's far more profitable to just be a solo entrepreneur, solo real estate agent than it is to build a brand.
But you would. What we would say here in the UK, you had a go.
I had to go at it, and that's something that I've done so many times. I could list you. We could spend 45 minutes talking about just all the things I tried that didn't work out. I've sold, I've sold. I had BravoAccessories.co was one of my first businesses, which was, I don't know if you remember the phase where people had these little beaded bracelets that had the Buddha or the lion's head on it.
Yeah.
That was my first business. I sold wooden watches on Twitter back in like 2014, 15. I've sold women's beauty products online. I've built all sorts of different businesses and had to go quite a few times. And most of the time it doesn't work out, but when I've won decent. So I think that's the spirit of, honestly, even just self-employment, like and jumping over, and that's why I aligned so well to the eXp model. But as I went and scaled a couple of businesses, I also got the opportunity to be a part of other brands in the US that were in sort of their startup phase. So I got to be part of a company back home in the US that is not international, but they were a Silicon Valley tech brokerage that was coming up, and it was during this kind of phase where we went from nothing to a unicorn company. So we hit $1 billion in valuation. That was a fun ride, and I got to play this hybrid role where I was helping them scale as a business, but I was also building my own real estate business within their platform, and that was my first kind of exposure to corporate. Like I chose to be in real estate, probably pretty different to a lot of the UK estate agents. I chose to work in real estate because I never wanted to have a boss. I never wanted to be told what to do every day, and during that period of building my businesses, I also got the experience of building my own real estate portal in the US. So I built a portal specifically for new development homes. I did a partnership with one of the second largest MLS in the country, and sort of had this fantastic experience. And during that time, sort of into my mid 20s, I was about 26, 27 years old. I had been pitched eXp so many times throughout my life as they continued to grow.
Well, because other agents, by way of the revenue share that you were talking about, are looking at you thinking, hey, you could smash this. Come and be part of my downline.
Yeah, I got that pitch so many times, and at the time I was like, I don't really care about revenue share or it doesn't mean anything to me. And the truth is, it wasn't until someone sat me down and explained how they built this phenomenal business within eXp as an agent and how they were selling $100 million worth of real estate a year. And then in the last 5 minutes of their 30-minute conversation, they're like, oh, and there's also this really cool thing called rev share, which I make like an extra $100,000 a year on. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Moving on. Anyways, how did you scale that? Like, that's what I cared about more than anything. And when I understood the possibilities of the platform, and as somebody who comes from an international market where I wanted exposure internationally, I have two of the big red brand in Miami that they're 10 kilometers away from each other, two offices owned by different owners. They both really wanted me to join because I was looking for international exposure. They're an international brand. One's Venezuelan, one's Colombian, the owners. And the two offices rep the same brand. And they absolutely hated each other, and they recruited against one another, and the agents would fight back and forth, and it was totally different staff. And if I called that office, they treated me differently in this office. And I was just like, this isn't for me. And I didn't understand the international portion of eXp. And when I saw that eXp is one office across the 29 countries, you could be an agent in the UK, call up the Dubai office, and immediately be treated like an eXp agent, because you are, not like you're someone else's office or branch. That blew my mind. And I saw the opportunity to scale what I wanted to scale. And so I was coming over to eXp originally just as a team leader. Like I was bringing my team with me. We were going to build this brand. I was going to build this international business. And then I met Leo and Glenn, and they somehow convinced me to join them on the corporate side, on the dark side of things, as we say. And it's been the most incredible journey I've ever been a part of. I love every minute of what I do, and I'm having the time of my life growing this business.
And how long have you been the MD of International?
I think I've been the MD for 1.5 years, and I've been in the international space. Before I was the VP of just growth for probably another year. So I've been here for 2.5 years.
And how's it changed and scaled in that time?
I think when I joined, we were doing something like $50 odd million a year in revenue. And 2 years later, we're over $150 million a year in revenue at this point. I think we've grown by something like 50% in terms of agent count. We've scaled. Last year, I opened up 8 countries in 9 months, which was you saw me just at the end of that. I was knackered, but as you guys say, a lot of plane rides. But the business has grown tremendously. We're growing anywhere between 60 to 70% year over year in terms of revenue and transactions. And
so I think Glenn would call that a success.
I hope so. Yeah, I think he's quite happy with it. But I think what we've also done is we've proven everyone again, which is I think the theory of, or the concept of eXp is like we just keep proving people wrong. They said it wouldn't work in the UK. Now it works. They said scaling, there is no independent real estate company that has scaled to this many countries the way we have. So just real quick, 'cause people listening might not understand why it's different between independent and franchise. If you're a franchise, like it's a totally different world of scaling.
Like what? Give us an example. Like a Century 21?
Yeah. Good example is you reach out to somebody in a country you're not in and say, hey, pay me money. I give you my brand. Here's my tech. Go off and run with it. If you make money, great. So do I via royalties. If you don't make money, I still made money off you via
that was
royalties.
the Keller Williams approach, right?
Right. And that's
which
the
is
approach
bombed in the UK.
We've seen to different levels of success and failure across the world, right? And where it's been successful, it's because they've had really strong operators who were able to scale a business. It had nothing to do necessarily with the brand itself. It was just the person behind it and building it. And when we open up a new country, it is our team, our staff, our money, our investment on paying
because
the
every
portals.
country is in effect owned by the US parent of eXp.
So the parent company now, which just changed from eXp World Holdings to AG&T Incorporated or AG&T Inc. They own the full thing, and so we're all just staff members with this mission and goal of creating in every single country a platform that is going to help the agent scale. So if you join in the UK, it'll look a little bit different than if you joined in Dubai. The systems you'll use, the tech, the platform, maybe even to a degree the fees and the model, but the concept of revenue share, tech-based, you have your brand, all of that.
Agent first.
That's our core model. And so I think where we've been successful is we haven't just grabbed what we've done in the US and said, okay, this here, build it and they will come over there. We look at each country individually and look at the culture, interview agents, speak to how could I change and create a platform that is going to make it just a binary decision on whether you should be a part of eXp or not? How can I set you up for success in a way that the other brands aren't? And I think the people who have the answer to that question are the ones like Adam Day, who end up being our country leaders.
He's done okay.
He's done all right. Yeah, he's a good guy. Decent.
Let's not big him up too much.
Yeah. He already gets enough attention. This is about me. No, he's fantastic, and he's proven. He's proven the whole of the UK wrong and some of them right, and he's done it with a phenomenal team. And really, I think the credit has to go to him and to the agents who have built the business. You know, all he's done is empower agents to succeed, and the agents have gone and ran with it and have continued to grow. And that's all we're trying to do. My goal isn't to grow the largest real estate brand in the world by me doing it. It's by going out and partnering with the best agents in the world and empowering them to build their business. And if they can grow their business, eXp will continue to grow and scale.
Yeah. So you've mentioned the word success quite a lot.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's been some knocks along the way, which in the UK, we're really scared of, though. We don't talk about failure. That F word is never, ever used, because apparently here in the UK, as I know to my cost, if you fail, that's it. You're done.
Yeah.
Whereas in the US, of course, the attitude is, oh, how many times did you have to fail to become successful? Yeah. But it does take a certain type of person. So I want to drill into the kind of Felix Bravo background right back to kind of day one. You had a bit of a choppy upbringing, I think it's fair to say, didn't you? So born in Venezuela. Take us from there.
I was born in Venezuela, one of the greatest countries in the world, but such a beautiful place. I miss it a lot. But I was born in Caracas. My dad was in the military. He was a bit of a politician as well. And you know, we had a government change in the late 90s when Chavez took over. My dad was a pretty prominent politician for the party that lost to Chavez. And so we, you know, went through this sort of tough period where as Chavez took over in the government, they actually started putting a lot of people who were on the opposition to jail. It's a very corrupt government, as Venezuela's been in the news quite a lot in the last year.
Is that why it might have been invaded by Donald Trump a year or so?
Yeah, something like that. We won't touch on that, thankfully, but we'll talk a little bit about the experience I had, which was just that all of a sudden the people who were in an opposition or ran against Chavez, they were being basically persecuted in terms of, you know, all of a sudden everybody was going to jail. You were getting exiled from the country. There was all these horrible things happening.
And your dad was one of those?
My dad was one of those. You were getting properties taken away from you and all these sort of things. And so there was a period where my dad was, you know, kind of being persecuted by this new government coming in. And, you know, I have small memories of it because I was quite young, but I do have the memory of my mom putting my sister and I to sleep for multiple times, like fully clothed. With our shoes by the bed, because my dad, a lot of his colleagues had gotten, you know, middle of the night, just your door opens and it's the government military police, and you're getting taken to jail or whatever the case may be, because you're advocating and speaking out against the current regime. And my dad was one of those. And so I had that sort of experience, which was quite scary. I was young enough to not know what was going on. I was 5 or 6 years old, but also at the same time, I was like, oh, this is kind of weird. Like, I used to have really great set of pajamas. Why am I sleeping in jeans now? This is uncomfortable. And one day my mom just says, hey, guess what? Picks me up from school and says, we're going to Disney. And I was like, this is the coolest day ever. We're going to Disney. And my sister and I and my mom flew off to Disney, and she said, your dad will he'll meet us there in a couple of days. And what was happening was my dad was having his trial. So there was a trial going on to determine whether or not he was, had he broken any of the rules that the new regime had brought in, spoken against. And should he have been put to jail? My mom just didn't want to be in the country for that to happen. And so we went to Disney, and my dad thankfully didn't, he won his case and didn't go to jail. And 5 days later came and joined us in Disney. And for 5 days straight, we went to the parks every single day. It was the best days of my life. And,
hang on, you've glossed over that. And I don't want to get too political here. This isn't a political podcast, but one would imagine that given that regime, that going to trial, there would be an inevitability to being found guilty.
Yeah,
but somehow he managed to get off the hook and flee the country.
Yeah, it wasn't. And this was 2001. It wasn't at the point yet where, like, it was still at the point where you could go to trial. Let's put it that way. It wasn't at the point where, like, the
rather
trial
just
didn't
being
even
picked
exist,
up off the street,
right?
and slung in jail.
Which is what we've seen over the last decade in Venezuela now. So he did have a trial, and he was free to go. He was dishonorably or honorably, whatever it is, discharged from the military. So he lost his military position, lost his pension, lost everything.
So he comes to the US to meet you 5 days later.
5 days later.
With what in terms of bank account, assets, wealth?
So my dad, he was financially pretty successful in Venezuela. He was in the real estate space, so he had invested a lot of his money in commercial properties. One of the things that I learned later on in life was how much of that he lost in that period. So he was always smart and was able to move money outside of the U.S. Now he put it into a bank called Sanford Bank, which is I think in the UK Virgin Islands actually.
Sanford,
like
yeah. Glenn Sanford.
No.
Not related to your boss.
Bank.
Or Stanford, right, going to say.
Bank, sorry.
That would be,
sorry, Glenn.
No, that would be a very odd coincidence.
Sorry, Glenn. No, Stanford Bank.
Yeah.
Stanford
in the university.
Bank in the UK Virgin Islands, which was, I think, the second largest Ponzi scheme ever to exist in the world. And it turned out to be later on. So my dad was, he had moved a lot of money out of the country that way for quite some time. And we moved to the United States. And for some time when we moved to the US, growing up, I cannot lie, I had a privileged life. And we weren't rich or anything. There was nothing immense about crazy wealth, but we had a house and my parents had new cars and we traveled quite a bit. And I had a very, very great childhood and my parents were very supportive of that. And my dad tried a lot of different businesses in the U.S. He opened up a restaurant. He bought a bunch of shipping containers. He got into logistics. He bought trucks and he did all sorts of different things and didn't really ever find one that picked up and succeeded to a great degree. And so I got to see that side of life, and my dad taught me a lot about entrepreneurship and about building wealth and the importance of success. And he was in the military for 35 years. Like this was someone who, when I was 7 years old, 8 years old, would scream out in Spanish, and the direct English translation into would scream out to my sister and I, everybody report to your stations, which meant we were having our rooms inspected, and so it was a little bit rigid sometimes, but.
But do you thank him for that now?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. At the time, I had such a hard relationship with him as I was just like, man.
Well, because he was strict.
Yeah. I used to have to ask for, sir, can I have permission to go play in the yard or something? And then he would say yes. So I had all these rules I had to follow and he was quite strict. And then, we had this great life from 2001, 2002 to 2008. My dad's most successful investments and largest investments in the U.S. were residential real estate. And we all know what happens in 2008. But in 2009, Stanford Bank goes under. And so you get a phone call one day that says, hey, all the money you have is gone. It just doesn't exist. It was a Ponzi scheme. The UK government, US government comes in. Everybody loses everything.
No compensation.
No compensation. No, they're still in a lawsuit to this day from that in 2009. I think my dad told me he's gotten $15,000 from the compensation so far that he's gotten.
So has he lost everything?
He lost everything, yeah. So my father lost everything at that point. In two different ways. He lost it through Stanford Bank, which was basically any kind of life savings, things for the future. And then in the residential real estate space, you're during 2008, market changes and your mortgage goes from $2,000 a month to $8,000 a month, and you have it rented at $2,500 a month, right? You had these mortgage loans that were ridiculous, and so all of a sudden he starts losing all his properties. And so from about 2009 all the way up until 2016, 17, there was just this dwindling effect of them selling off everything. And I remember at that point I was already 12, 13 years old. I remember that. I remember seeing all of a sudden. My parents starting to sell off all their cars, and they switched cars from nice brands to used cars, and then all of a sudden from used cars to an entry level brand, and all these different things that ended up happening. And I saw the stress that it caused my family.
Did they tell you what was happening, or they wanted to protect you from it?
Small things like, hey, just
no
money's
vacations.
Tight, no vacations. I remember my mom telling me that my dad asked for a loan from a friend to buy us Christmas presents. So it had gone down to that point. I remember when we had to sell the house, my mom crying, but them telling us oh, we're moving, to a smaller apartment.
Yeah, they're trying to protect you.
Yeah. So I remember that side of it, and it you don't realize it when you're that age how much it impacts you. You don't acknowledge it.
Well, therein lies the next question, which is how do you think that impacted you in terms of your formative years, seeing both what happened in Venezuela and your father kind of getting away with his life potentially, then rolling his sleeves up, working hard, making something of himself in the US, then losing it through no fault of his own. How does that rub off on Felix Bravo, do you think?
I was quite an angsty teenager. So angsty is the nice way that I would put it. Yeah, I was quite a there was a lot of anxiety in my household during that time, both from my mom, my dad. My mom went back to school, for example, she became a real estate agent. And, during this time, I saw my parents work harder than they'd ever worked before in their life with no results happening the results that were happening all just seemed to be bad at the time. Like you're losing more money and all these things are happening and you're getting a call from the bank and you forfeited a property, you lost the property. I remember all these sort of things starting to happen. And, my sister was old, she's older than I, so she was going off to college. And I remember the conversations about if you don't get a scholarship, we're not going to be able to pay for it. And so I remember these things happening. And, I also remember, starting to turn 16, 17, and that's when sort of your friends start getting cars and they start doing things and me being like, can I get a car? And the answer was no, absolutely not. And, my friends are going on this trip. Can I go on a what do you guys call it? Lads holiday? Like, it's no money for that, right? So I remember these things starting to happen and I sort of just didn't really understand because my parents, they didn't have very transparent conversations with me.
Did you think your parents were being unfair or obstructive rather than it being a question of, hey, look, there's no money?
No, I sort of just felt like they ended up getting divorced during this period. So they were going through quite a bit in themselves. And I just remember thinking like, okay, well, I'm just going to go be a teenager and I'm going to go play football and I'm going to go have fun.
Football or soccer?
Soccer, football. Yeah. I'm going to go enjoy my life. And, I kind of, as a teenager, you find yourself disassociating from problems quite a lot. And you usually do through things that maybe aren't always the healthiest. And I went out and just had a good time with my friends. And I always had it in my head. There's one thing I will say is like, no matter what stage of my life I've been, I've always had it in my head that like, I'll figure it out. Like I've just had that in me. I'll figure it out and I'll make it work. But
at this stage though, you're not worried about ambition, aspiration,
no.
Earning $100,000 a year or $1 million a year. So you're 18, 19 at this point?
No, at this point I'm still 16, 17. And I was like, I'll
probably whatever. Yeah.
I'll probably get a scholarship for soccer. That was my thought process. I'll probably find a way into university through a scholarship. At the time, like I had two obsessions, which was soccer and having fun. And so I just, all that energy and anxiety, I poured it into soccer and I trained. And that was kind of the first period of work ethic before I would go to trainings because you're forced, right? You play for a team. They tell you have to train. You have to show up training. Coach says you got to run. I got to run. I'll go play pickup with my friends, but it's for fun. And it was the first time in my life that I went, oh, I have a goal here. Like I need to get a scholarship for soccer. So what am I going to do about that?
So kind of light goes on where you get a semblance of reality.
Yeah.
Even at 16 or 17, you think, hey, I can't blow this now. Right?
Can't blow this now. And so I got to figure this out. And so I started, it was the first time that I said, okay, I'm going to do my own training sessions too on top of this. I'm going to go to the park and I'm going to have my cones and I'm going to do this and I'm going to seek to get better and better and better. And I'm going to put myself out there, right? So like I had to, I remember going on Google at the time and Googling all of the universities that I wanted to potentially play for and finding the emails of the coach and filming myself on my little digital camera and making videos and my highlights, which they're still out there on YouTube. If anyone finds them, good luck. They're still out there, actually.
You haven't taken them down?
I haven't taken them down. They're quite funny to look at every now and
imagine people searching on YouTube right now.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll find it. I was quite a player. I'm a good center back.
You know,
that a bit of a Harry Maguire.
Those videos are now going to be shown at the eXp Christmas conference in December. You know that,
they
right?
will. Maybe they will. And I started doing that, and it was first time that I was doing something for myself, by myself. I was fending for myself. My parents had no idea how to get their kid into, no one teaches you that. And so I went through that process. I was lucky enough to get a scholarship my senior year of high school. Around the same time, I tore my MCL. So I had a knee injury, and that was kind of my first dealings with like, oh, I have a setback to a problem, and I have a setback to a goal and ambition, and I worked through it. And long story short, I ended up getting a scholarship, a full ride to a university in New York called the King's College, which you guys actually have here in London. So I went to King's College in Manhattan. And I was there. I graduated high school a little bit early from an age-wise. I was 17. Typically, you graduate at 18. So I moved to Manhattan at 17. And I do remember that feeling of like, oh my God, like I did it. It worked out. That thing I worked so hard for, like actually happened, and it worked out. But
it sounds like although your parents were around, but they split up now. You're not leaning into anybody here. This is just you. Right?
Yeah, my parents were going through a lot, and I don't fault them at all for it. My mom was trying to figure out how to pay her bills. He's trying to figure out how to pay his bills. She's reinventing herself in her mid, whatever it is, in her early 50s, mid late 40s. My mom was just reinventing herself as a real estate agent, as a former lawyer herself. My dad's a little bit older. My dad's now 73, so he must have been already in his 60s. To lose everything in your 60s in a country you're not from is not easy, and trying to figure all that out. And so I went to New York for a year, and during that same time, I decided to get my real estate license in Florida. And I had the absolute pleasure of playing a total of like 4 games my freshman year of college in soccer, and then I tore my MCL again. And being in crutches in Manhattan and sharing a 1-bedroom apartment with 3 other guys just sucked.
Otherwise, you wouldn't be sitting here now. You would be playing for the United States soccer team, football team.
I definitely wouldn't have. I wasn't that good. No, I wasn't that good. I was pretty
maybe
tenacious.
in a US-England final. Who knows?
Maybe. Who knows? No. But that was kind of my journey into real estate, because I realized, for me at least, university was it was a way to keep me playing competitive soccer. It wasn't a way to get me a future forward. It wasn't something I was passionate about. And at the time, I was quite probably angsty and angry. And I remember back home, I had a friend who his dad is, I think we all have like that one friend who's like the richest friend you have, right? And I remember always going to his house, and like they lived a great life. They had a beautiful house. And I remember being teenagers and I couldn't get a car, and he got like an Audi, and my girlfriend, I was taking her to like the nowhere because I couldn't afford it. And he was taking his girlfriend out to nice dinners. And so I just went like, whoa, your dad works in real estate. Like, what's that? My mom works in real estate too, but she's not as successful as your dad. Like what? And she had started to pick up her career at this point, but he was on another planet.
And he was what, a broker, right?
Yeah, he was a broker, and he sold. He was like the king of new development in my area. And so I talked to him, and he said, "Yeah, go get your license if you want. To be honest, I don't really have any work for you, but if you want to get your license, you should do it." And so I said, "Okay," got my license. Came back down end of freshman year of college, and I just went to him and I said, "I'll work for you for free. I will do your laundry. I will get your dry cleaning." He's like, "Kid, I don't really have a lot of work for you. Look, I work with these like developers, and they want experienced agents, and we're a small team." And he's kind of giving me the runaround. And I was like, "Look, I'll show up to the office. Just like let me show up to the office." He's like, "You know what? Fine.
I don't want to get paid. I just want in."
Yeah, he was like, "I can't pay you anything. If you want to sit at the office on your computer and mess about, sure, go for it." So I've told this story once before, I think, but I went to the office, and I was just, something in me switched. Like all of a sudden, I was on my own for the first time, and I was figuring it out. And my parents had gotten divorced. My dad went back to Venezuela at this point to try. It didn't work in the U.S., so he's going back to his roots, trying to figure out what he can figure out. My mom's going through, being divorced and middle-aged and reinventing herself as a real estate agent. And at this point, she had done all these other things. She was a children's book author and a life coach and a radio show host. Like, she was trying to figure it all out. And I learned a lot from that, from my mom, seeing her try all these different things. And I was like, that's great. You're just a lawyer. Now you're like doing all these things. It's crazy. And I went all in on real estate, and I showed up to the office every single day. And I just made sure, I knew he showed up at like 9 a.m. So I showed up at 8:30 just so that I could say hi to him on the way in. I knew he left about 6 p.m. So I stayed till 6:30 every day just so I could say bye. And every day at lunchtime, I knocked on the door and said, "Hey, Mark," was the name of my boss. "Hey, Mark, anything I could do for you?" And the answer was always no, 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 no. And I did that month over month over month over month. I had no idea what I was doing. Would sit in the office.
But you sat it out.
Sat it out. Sometimes I was just in the office like, I don't even know what I was doing. I was on Facebook or something.
But what are you waiting for? What do you think's going? You think he's going to throw you a bone?
I just knew that my alternative was to just go do something I really didn't like, which was go to school and live the life that everyone else was living, which my friends at the time were all, when you're in university, you're partying and you're going out. And I had this sort of like gut feeling that I didn't have whether it was true or not, I didn't have the privilege of living that life. If I did that, I knew that I wasn't going to be serious about becoming somebody. And I all of a sudden had this urge, which was the reality of life's hit me. I realized nobody was coming to save me. I realized that I didn't want to be in this just to go get a 9-to-5 job and live like everyone else. I wanted something more out of my life. Real estate, right or wrong, became the avenue that I was like, this is my way out. This is how I'm going to do it. And I know that if I could show this guy that I've got something will come of it. It's my only in, other than my mom, who at this point had already kind of moved on from real estate.
Do you think this is like make or break, even though you're only 19?
Oh, everything in my head is always make or break. Like everything I do is it kind of always has that connotation to it. And so eventually he came up to me one day and said, "Kid, you know what? I've got a meeting. You're the only one here. You're the only agent in the office." No one goes to the office. And I think we've shown that at eXp. No one goes to the office anymore unless they're being forced to or paid to.
Concept proven.
And he was like, "I've got a meeting. I just got a call from a developer who's a buddy of mine. He's got 12 townhouses. They just fired their sales team. It's 7 p.m. on like a Thursday. They invited me over for a glass of wine just to talk. Come with me. Sure. So we're in the car, and I remember him saying, don't say a word. I'll do all the talking, and let's see what happens. And so we go in, and we meet with these developers, and I'm doing what he said, not saying a word. All of a sudden, it's the first time I saw someone be such a phenomenal salesperson. The way he controlled that room, I was like in awe, and I was like, oh, I want that.
But you're learning, right?
I'm learning, and I'm picking up on all these things. And, all of a sudden I see him look over. He's like, you see that kid? That's going to be the best realtor in Miami in the next 3 years. He's the hot shot. He's this, he's the hungriest, he's that. And I was like, well, me? I was like, you're talking about me? And long story short on that is we walked away from that with the 12 townhouses signed. And he looked at me and said, this is your chance. You've got 6 months. If in 6 months you can't, show results, you're out, but I'm going to give you the opportunity. And so he ended up giving me the opportunity, and I sold all of those townhouses, and that was it. My life changed, and I became obsessed with real estate, and a lot of other things happened along the way, good or bad, but I was, a late teenager at that point, and I went all in on living this real estate life. And if I hadn't done that, then the next chapters of life would have been extremely more hard, because eventually I think I don't know if I've actually ever shared this, but my father ended up with nothing, to the point where generally nothing, to where like he didn't have a place to live. All the bank accounts are gone. The credit cards have all cut you off. You have $0 in your bank. You don't know how you're going to pay for anything. It's over. And this was 2 years into my real estate career, and I had an apartment. I thought I was so cool because I had this 1-bedroom apartment. All my friends were still in college at this time, university. And I had done really well in my first year and a half in real estate. So I've had an opposite experience to a lot of people. But my second year was really hard. We had a lot of deals fall through with developers, and the real estate market got pretty rocky in 2018, 17 in Miami in the new development space. It was hyper competitive. We were overdeveloped. It was a mess. And I did what I'm supposed to do, which was I took my dad in. And so my dad slept in my bed in my 1-bedroom, and I slept in the living room in an air mattress for 9 months. And that moment happened to me at the same time that my real estate career went from this like, oh, this is easy, I'm selling houses, to, oh my God, you're selling nothing. And the developers you were working with just fired your firm. And so the deals you had on the pipeline, that's all gone, and you've got nothing. And I'm 21 years old trying to figure this out. And I remember going to the gym with a friend, and he was like, you want to get a Red Bull or a Monster? And I was like, yeah, sure, let's go. And I just had to check my bank account to see if I could afford
to buy a can of
Monster,
soda,
because I had just not been particularly smart with my money at the time. I was very young, and I thought more deals were going to come in, and I learned a really hard life lesson that
you
doesn't
spent
happen.
What you earned?
I spent a lot of what I earned, but then I went through a 7-month period where I closed nothing. So when you work for developers in Miami, in the US, a lot of times you close all these deals, but it's under construction, which means they pay you maybe a very small portion. And as the completion of the project happens, once they get to like 50% completion, you might get another chunk and another chunk. But really, you get the big payout once they close, which is once it's done. So sometimes I would sell properties and not actually get paid for a year and a half on like on the 90% of the actual commission.
But if you get fired in the meantime, it all goes.
So it all goes. Yeah. So I lost 7 deals, which was worth about $120,000. I remember, in terms of commissions. And I had those in the pipeline. And at this time it was happening, I was banking on those coming in. And this is where I realized that I was working for someone. I didn't realize I was working for someone up until I realized that I am fully dependent on these developers. And that was like the light switch in my head that said, never again. Never again am I just dependent on developers. Because when you're working in-house for the developer, you're not building your own real estate business. You're selling their units. And that's
You're
great.
working solely for them.
Solely for them.
And also at their behest. So there's little upside, but loads of downside.
Yeah. The benefit is you get all the inventory and you control it. But if that inventory goes away tomorrow, what do you have? You haven't built anything. And I was what we call a ghost agent. I wasn't telling anybody about it. I mean, I was on my social medias here and there, but I wasn't trying to build a business. I was just selling for developers directly. And so in that sort of period of my time, I remember having conversations with my girlfriend, who's still my girlfriend to this day. She's here in London with me, actually. And I remember crying, like just really, really bad one night. And I was like, I don't like, why? Like, why is this happening? You get to that point where you're like, what do you do? I'm an idiot. I've been spending the last 3 years in real estate. All my friends are now at the stage where they're graduating university and they're starting to get the jobs, and they feel so secure. That sounded so safe and secure. And she was like, well, why don't you just go get a job and, get back in school? And at the time, that's like the sensible thing to probably do. It's like, hey, you're still young.
But
like,
it's not you.
But it's not me. And so I signed up for university, and 3 days later, I was like, what am I doing? This is not me. I was like, if I'm going to go out, I'm going to go out just swinging. And so I just went right back into, then I said, I'm going to start my first real estate business. So in the worst moment of my life, when I have no idea what to do, when I'm cooking dinner for my dad for the first time, and making sure I have groceries for him, and I'm living this sort of double life where I'm this young 20-something-year-old in Miami, but at the same time supporting a family, right? Supporting my dad. The spark of like, what am I going to sell? What do I know how to do? I know how to sell things. I'm a good salesperson. I know how to build relationships, and I know that no matter what, I'll outwork anybody. Like, that was the one thing that I've always been obsessed with. Was I would see people who were 55 chapters ahead of me in life and go, I could probably get there in 20 chapters instead of 55. I don't know why. I just think I can. I just back myself. And so I remember just having like almost being delusionally like laughing at my situation one night while crying, where I was just like, oh, I can't wait to fucking tell this story one day. And that's what I said. And now I am, which is pretty cool.
Well, you've had a lesson there in cyclicality, which is what the property market, whether it's in South America or the US or the UK, is all about. Ups and downs, the whole roller coaster ride. But it seems that you're very aware of the other lessons that you've learned in life, either from yourself and your kind of experiences or through your parents' experiences, which is resilience and tenacity.
Yep.
And I think a lesson here, and I think this has been the perfect demonstration, Felix, seriously, of what this podcast is all about, which is to look at someone that's successful, the head of something, the boss, the CEO, the successful, rich entrepreneur. We've had loads of them in this studio. But actually to dig into the story, which is, it's not always been a bed of roses. It's not always been pleasant. It's definitely had hardship along the way. But the thread that we've picked at here, and I presume you realise this, and hopefully everybody watching this does, is that it isn't easy. But you have to be tenacious. You have to be resilient. You have to keep trying, and you have to have a work ethic. The biggest thing for me over the last hour or so has been the fact that you've got into a position in a real estate office. You've sat in an office for seemingly months without being paid, without any kind of indication that there's something at the end of it for you, but you stayed and you stuck at it, because eventually you obviously knew this guy's going to turn. This guy's going to look at me one day and say, okay, jump in the car and come and see some developers, which is what happened. So some might say, yeah, well, I suppose if you stick at this stuff long enough, that's bound to happen. But you have to have a certain amount of character, I think, and tenacity to pursue that and to be resilient. And there's a real entrepreneurial lesson here. And I think you've got it from your mum and dad. Yeah,
no, I 100%, I couldn't agree more. I think your old life, to a degree, is the admission ticket to the life you want. And, there were so many times where in those moments when I was just sitting there at that office, I, like it or not, I started becoming better at real. I just started studying real estate. I started being around real estate agents, and we all think that everything is going to be easy, but failure is a byproduct of success. Is necessary in order to be successful, and it's so easy to desire success. It's so easy to sit here and picture what life you want. It's really hard to picture all the shit you're going to have to deal with on the way there, and you have a choice to make. Like, you have to decide if what you want is up here, understand the struggles are also up here. It matches it. And if you're not willing to put up with those struggles, then you should just accept yourself, accept your life, and lower your standards.
I think if we're doing visuals, let's say you're aiming for this and you're here, it's not a straight line.
No.
The line is like that. And I think you've demonstrated that. And it's the same for your father, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, talk about resilience. I mean, he's, stood up, been shot down, stood up, been shot down. And I think whether it's you, whether it's your father, whether it's your mother, whether it's the likes of, I don't know, a Richard Branson, an Alan Sugar, a Warren Buffett, an Elon Musk, any super entrepreneur, trust me in this, and you know this, but trust me in this, there is hardship and adversity and failure behind every story of success. And Felix, thank you, because you've demonstrated that perfectly. And I've got to ask you this. You're very young still. How old are you?
Unfortunately, I turn 30 next month. I'm not looking forward to it. Yeah.
Guys, he's 29. What a story.
I'm not,
29.
I had a mentor of mine told me recently, I won't say who he is, but a mentor of mine, we were at dinner and with our significant others, and he sat me down and he said, hey, someone once told me this, so now it's my turn to tell it to you. You're about to enter the stage of life where you're no longer this young phenom. You're just an average successful dude, and you better be ready for that. And I went, no, I'm good. I'll stay in my 20s. No, it's I'm turning 30 next month. I'm incredibly grateful to be where I'm at, and I'm also really excited for, I look at where I was when I was 20, which is I was struggling and I was trying to figure out how to take care of my dad, and I could have never imagined I'd be sitting in London and doing a podcast like this, and overseeing 6,000 agents and doing all the things that I get to do, and so I'm really excited to see what these next 10 years hold.
Well, I have to say, look, hopefully it's been somewhat therapeutic for you sitting here talking about this, but your job is not just to be the kind of the lead to those 6,000 agents and to run eXp International. It's also to be inspirational. And I have to say, seriously, I think those that are watching this now would agree that you have been. So thank you.
Thank you.
Felix Bravo, everybody. Can people get in contact with you if, I don't know, if they want to kind of
Instagram,
ask a question or whatever?
Yeah. Felix F. Bravo on Instagram. Super simple. I answer almost every single person who messages me.
Fantastic. This has been brilliant. I've thoroughly enjoyed this. Hopefully you guys have too. This has been the Two Russells. Normally at this point, I'll need your help here, Felix. I say, and you won't get this because you're only 29. Okay. Back in the day in comedy, there was a double act called The Two Ronnies, which is why we're called The Two Russells, where one of the Ronnies says, it's good night from me, and you say, it's good night for him. So because Russell Jervis isn't here, we're going to do that. So that's been The Two Russells, episode 57. So it's good night from me.
And it's good night for him.
Mate, fantastic.